I want to talk about James Fishback, and I'm not beating around the bush. I'm coming directly at him. Because if you want to be governor of Florida, my state, you don't get treated like a meme candidate. You get treated like someone asking for the keys to a $1 trillion economy and 23 million lives. And here's the bottom line. James Fishback should not even be on the ballot. Florida Constitution requires that a governor reside in Florida for 7 years, not occasionally, not when it's convenient for filing paperwork. 7 years. There is reports showing that he has been living in D.C. and voting there. If you're voting in D.C., claiming residency in D.C., operating your professional life out of D.C., and then you suddenly show up and say, trust me, I'm Florida through and through, Floridians are allowed to say, no, you're not. This isn't a vibe requirement. It's constitutional. You cannot govern a state you haven't been living in. And I say that as someone who has lived in Florida my entire life and is now raising 4 kids in the state. My childhood was here. My education was here. My church is here. My business is here. My roots go deep here. Florida is not a prop to me. It's home. And I don't care about James Fishback as a personality. I don't care about internet drama. I don't care about influence or clout. I care about Florida. Now, let me address something clearly. There are very serious allegations about his personal life circulating online. There are lengthy breakdowns about his past relationships, business disputes, and legal fights. If you want that, go find it. Other platforms have gone deep on it. I'm not building my argument on that, although most of it is disqualifying enough before we even get to his policy proposals. And any candidate running for governor should face scrutiny about character, integrity, and honesty. That's fair game in politics. But my argument doesn't need the gossip, because his public record and his policy proposals are what affect me and my family's life. So let's start with tone. Fishback speaks about Florida like it's some corrupt third world disaster zone that needs to be blown up and rebuilt from scratch. That's straight out of the Groyper blueprint. The Groyper model is simple. Tear everything down, tell everyone the system is irredeemably corrupt, brand yourself as the lone truth teller, and farm outrage clicks. Take it from the free press who said it plainly. His political brand is built on provocation, outrage, and internet spectacle. That is not a governing philosophy. That is a content strategy, and Florida is not content. That works on the internet. It does not work in Tallahassee. Florida is not collapsing. Florida is thriving. Over the last decade, Florida has led the nation in net domestic migration. Millions of Americans have moved here because their states have failed them. We have no state income tax. We have maintained balanced budgets. We expanded school choice to record levels. We've ranked #1 in higher education multiple years in a row. Our economy has outperformed much of the country. We kept businesses open when blue states crushed theirs. We're not Venezuela. We're not California. We are not Illinois. We are the example. So when a guy who's been living in D.C. parachutes in and talks like Florida is some banana republic in need of regime change, forgive us if we don't clap. I actually thought he was a Democrat when I first encountered him. It's insulting. It assumes Floridians are dumb. It assumes we don't know what success looks like. And then you look at his promises. A 50% sin tax on OnlyFans creators. Florida constitutionally prohibits a state income tax on individuals. You can't do that. And let's be clear about something. If you create a state income tax on them, you create a state income tax for all Floridians, period. You don't breach that constitutional wall for one group and magically contain it. Once the principle is broken, it applies to everyone. If he can tax their income, he can tax yours. That's not bold. That's middle school student council energy. That's vote for me and I'll put soda in the water fountain. It sounds exciting until you realize it's impossible. Then there's the promise to take money invested in Israeli bonds and redirect it to first-time homebuyer down payments. Again, flashy. Except Florida's pension funds are legally held in trust for retirees, first responders, teachers, and law enforcement. You can't just grab pension assets and repurpose them for a housing grant program because it polls well on social media. Have fun explaining that to cops, that you were putting your hand in their cookie jar to feed your clicks. That's not how fiduciary law works. You don't get to raid the retirement system to fund campaign promises. That's not America first. That's retirees last. Then there's the proposal to charge foreign students $1 million in tuition to attend Florida universities. $1 million. First of all, tuition policy in Florida is governed by the Board of Governors and university trustees. The governor does not wake up and decree tuition numbers by executive order. There is statutory authority. There is constitutional structure. There is a governing board that sets policies. Second, our higher education system has ranked #1 in the nation precisely because it has been managed responsibly. You don't get to improve the best system in America by turning it into a campaign stunt. But again, soda in the water fountain. Then he says he'll rip undocumented children from public schools by executive order. Set aside how you feel about immigration. The Supreme Court ruled decades ago that states cannot deny K-12 education to undocumented children under current constitutional law. Florida's constitution calls education a paramount duty. You can argue the case should be overturned. You cannot pretend you can override it with the stroke of a pen on day one. There are only two explanations for Fishback's proposals. He's either lying to Floridians' faces, or he has no clue how the role he's auditioning for works. Both are disqualifying. He can say whatever he wants. It is literally impossible for him to do these things. Floridians should be offended by the lies he spews at them. That's not strength. That's performative fantasy. And notice something. Most of what he talks about? National issues, foreign policy, Israel, immigration, culture war theatrics. It sounds like a presidential campaign for clicks. It sounds like someone auditioning for cable news segments. It does not sound like someone focused on Florida insurance reform, hurricane preparedness, water management, infrastructure, workforce training, the unborn, and the actual mechanics of state governance. Let's talk about Israel for a moment. In 2023, he posted in ways that signaled support for Israel's right to exist and condemnation of Hamas violence. But fast forward, now he says he fell for the Israel is our greatest ally scam. He mocks the Western Wall, calling it a stupid wall. The Western Wall is not just a political talking point. It is the holiest site in Judaism where Jews can pray. It is a remnant of the Second Temple. It is sacred to millions of people, including hundreds of thousands of Floridians. Mocking it isn't edgy, it's ignorant. And again, it follows the Groyper script. Take a mainstream conservative position, declare it corrupt, flip hard in the opposite direction, and call everyone else sellouts. But here's the thing. Florida has one of the largest Jewish populations in the country. Florida has deep cultural and economic ties with Israel. You don't get to treat that like a disposable culture war prop. If your conditions swing that wildly in 2 years, why would Floridians trust you on anything? Then there's the rhetoric, calling Byron Donalds a slave to donors, or Byron, or Apac Shakur. That reeks of racism. Launching a Tinder profile to reach young female voters. This is not serious leadership. This is trolling dressed up as governance. And again, I go back to the residency issue. You don't get to live in Washington, D.C., vote there, build your life there, and then lecture lifelong Floridians about how broken our state is. You don't get to parachute in and run on national grievance politics while claiming to represent local communities you barely lived in. Fishback isn't a resident of Florida. He's a tourist begging for a late checkout to see how high he can run up his hotel bar tab before last call. The 7-year residency requirement is not a suggestion. It exists for a reason. Because Florida deserves a governor who understands its counties, its industries, its weather patterns, its politics, its people. Not someone treating it like a content strategy. And I'll say it plainly, this campaign is an insult. It assumes Floridians are dumb enough to believe constitutional impossibilities. It assumes we won't check basic legal constraints. It assumes we'll confuse outrage with competence. But James Fishback, we are better than that. We are not electing a student council president promising soda in the water fountain. We are electing someone to steward one of the strongest states in America. I don't care about James Fishback personally. I care about Florida. And Florida does not need to be torn down. It does not need to be reinvented by a Groyper chasing internet clout. It needs steady leadership that understands what works and protects it. We've built something here over the last decade. Lower taxes, balanced budgets, educational gains, economic growth, public safety, freedom. We do not gamble that on someone who may not even meet the constitutional requirement to run. Florida deserves better. And if you want to be governor of this state, start by actually living in it. Start by respecting its constitution. Start by offering policies that are legal, serious, and grounded in reality. And stop lying to its citizens and voters for your personal gain. Otherwise, you're not running for governor. You're running for clicks. And Florida is not your content studio. Don't fish back my Florida.
Hey, we the people like Garcia, so that's no excuse.